Hello, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Center Stage. I am Aaron Barton, joined by my co-host JP, a kid from Akron, Barry, and so just to give some early NFC and AFC favorites. Spencer, what are we thinking going into next season?
What are we thinking? All right, so I'll start with the AFC. I think they definitely, are looking like the stronger conference currently by kind of a long shot. Some of my favorites, I'll say, gonna have to be the Bills, looking great. I'm gonna go Bills, but just because they were so close, and now with the new OT rule, which we'll touch on in a little bit, they may get some redemption next year. They're looking really good. I love the Bengals. They basically solved their one issue. And then I really like the Chargers team. I think they maybe had the best offseason out of any team. And they just got a lot better. So I think the AFC is going to be super fun to watch this year.
I agree, and I like your point about the Bills. As we all know, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. And they're my pick to come out of the AFC. And I mean, like you said, the AFC is just stacked.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Unbelievable. I'm trying to think of more adjectives and I'm failing. But outside of the Bills, I like the Chargers idea, but that division is so evil. Mm-hmm. There's genuinely not a bad team among them. Chargers, Broncos, Raiders, Chiefs. I mean, just,
I think that kind of emerged into the best division in football.
Oh, I mean,
There was
a lot of discussion last year, and, obviously any team that has the Chiefs in it,
mm-hmm.
One of the best teams in the league. But I think it's something that I think we haven't seen ever. Except maybe the NFC West, like a couple of years ago, and with Colin Kaepernick and the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But, I mean, it's unreal. And I failed to see anyone other than the Bills coming. Hyperbole, of course, but.
Yeah, I got Bengals Bucks. As Spencer said, the Bengals. They already made it there this season, and they fixed their one need. Lyle Collins is a huge addition for them as, one of the best guard/tackles available. I mean, he's phenomenal, and he's going to do a great job protecting Joe Burrow. But I think that, with Tom back and he's ready for action, I think that, he's going to go out with this little fairy tale victory and actually call it quits this time. Because it didn't feel right with him, to retire without winning the Super Bowl again and to go out on a loss. It just didn't really make sense from the beginning. So now it would only make sense for him to come in, win it all, and call it quits for real this time. Yeah, that's my favorites coming in now. But for a sleeper team that I like, actually, I'm going to go with the Ravens. It's somebody that people haven't talked a lot about, but I think they finished this season at 9-8, and off of they had a great roster and they were able to win 9 games. Should have been more after some questionable calls at the end of a few games by Harbaugh, but his players had his back on it, so respect to them. I think that, with some huge players that they were missing throughout the season due to injury, that they're going to be getting back. I think that they're going to go far. So it'll be interesting.
I like that. I like the Ravens as the sleeper team. But touching on the NFC, who I think is going to come out on that, I think while the AFC is a better conference from quality standpoint, I think the NFC is going to be more fun. I just think there's going to be more like wacky teams that come out of nowhere. Because really in the NFC, you have the Rams and
the Niners. I mean, I would say that those are two probably my favorites.
Those
are,
NFC. And the Buccaneers, obviously, mm-hmm. Tom Brady. But
never forget about the Seahawks with Drew Lock.
No offense.
Boy, they're gonna surprise some people. Let me tell you.
But it's
surprisingly
there's so many avenues for other teams to just show Marcus Mariota and the Falcons. What's gonna happen there? But being serious, I think there's gonna be some really fun teams that kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know if any of them will get to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think coming out of the NFC, I'm going to go with the Rams. I think they go back to the Super Bowl after winning it this year. They lost a couple guys, but they've had a good offseason. They're starting to get into that like Saints cap space voodoo magic where they can just mysteriously create new money to sign players. It makes no sense. But allegedly, they're going to bring back Odell Beckham Jr. and they're in on Bobby Wagner, who's still a free agent somehow. I think that would just be insane. I mean,
It would be insane.
they lose Von Miller on defense, but you bring in Bobby Wagner. I mean, the rich get richer. But for my sleeper team, I have Trey Lance and, like you said, the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow.
I think Jimmy G's going to be somewhere else this season. And you guys kind of messed me up. Last week I had on the Panthers pullover, and now we're talking about the NFL. But hopefully Jimmy G doesn't go to Carolina. But that's a topic for further down the line. I think Trey Lance will really take the reins this year. And in an NFC West with the Cardinals, who are in an interesting situation that I'm sure will be expanded upon as we get closer to the draft, with Kyler Murray seeming to be kind of not happy with what's going on. Cliff Kingsbury, a bad college coach who's not a really great NFL coach, but he's still getting paid a lot. I don't really know what happened there. But I think they'll really kind of fill the voids of one of those spots in an NFC that people are perceiving as weaker than it is. But maybe the reason I'm sticking up for the NFC is because I'm also a really big viewer of ACC football. So...
All right, for my sleeper team, I like what you said about the 49ers, but I could see that team being kind of more than a sleeper team just because it is a weaker conference. I mean, they put on a really good performance last season. I don't think many people had them going as far as they did, especially with Jimmy G under the reins, who I think he gets more hate than
he's
he
like
deserves.
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, he's an average quarterback, but if you think about it, the interception in the championship game really wasn't his fault.
And he was playing through injuries.
He didn't play bad, but of course they've got Gamecock legend Deebo Samuel, who, I mean, if Cooper Kupp did not have the season he had, there was definitely a Deebo MVP campaign somewhere in there, because he put on such a show on the ground and through the air, something we haven't really seen before. So I think they'll be really good, but I think my sleeper team is kind of, as you mentioned, the Cardinals. Nobody really knows what's going on there because they completely crumbled at the end of last season. But they also did have a lot of injuries, so it's kind of a make or break year. If they don't make the playoffs or kind of have a bad performance, I think a bunch of things are going to definitely change in Arizona. But I think they definitely have the potential to make a good run.
Let me see, as a subtopic, did both of you see the picture of all the coaches at their little convention? And now I think we should address who was the drippiest coach in that picture.
Matt Rule by far. He looked like a Lego person, but all respect to Matt Rule. He's a great college football coach.
He's got one more year. That's all I'll say on that.
He's a great college.
If that.
But
I mean, of course, I'd love to see him turn it around.
that was of course, we're never going to root against the Panthers' success to confirm bias. At least I'm not. Some people, although that's more on the Hornets side of like Carolina sports, but.
That boy Mike McDaniel was looking clean. He was looking clean.
That's the thing, because I might be getting my names mixed up. He was offensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how the 49ers replace him, because his scheme was so different. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit because it's the team I forgot to mention as a sleeper, the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
adding him with his scheme, how he's going to use Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who they acquired in a trade a week ago.
I mean, they're the fastest team in the league.
And they signed Teron Armstead to just anchor that offensive line at left tackle and protect Tua. I think this could be great for them. I think they'll take advantage of the Jets and the Patriots and then some of the other. I haven't looked at their schedule in depth, but I'm pretty sure it's on the easier side. I think firing Brian Flores was a mistake. I think we all agree on that. It was weird. It was a weird mistake. But I think if you were going to replace him for your skill set, your skills set on offense at least, I think that was the best hire you could have possibly made. And, it's good that Brian Flores got that job with the Steelers, because now he could be the Panthers head coach next year, if things go as expected.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
I forgot to mention the Dolphins, and after we had already passed the sleeper teams, the T-Pain version of the Dolphins fight song started blaring in my head, and I was like, how could I forget that?
To kind of just keep going on this little side note that you started, what are some of our favorite impactful acquisitions? And for me to start, I'm going to go with two. One being or my favorite one leading into next season being Devontae Adams to the Raiders. I think that similarly to, the next one I'm going to name, there's some trades that can happen that just take a good team from being good to over the top. Same thing with last season when the Rams traded for Matthew Stafford. It was just one more piece where they had the pieces in other areas. They were just waiting for one specific need. And while the Raiders had a few receivers, there was some troubles last season with their receiving core. Obviously, Henry Ruggs,
Mr. Ruggs.
that situation.
I was thinking
very,
on the field, and then I remember I went, oh.
Yeah, that situation was it was very frustrating for them because he was playing well in the time that he was playing. And, Darren Waller, I think, got hurt for a little bit.
He was hurt like on and off.
Josh Jacobs has had injuries. Just the one constant, Hunter Renfrow.
And Brian Edwards had a good season, honestly.
He did.
Yeah.
But
Of course, Hunter
Renfrow.
Yeah. I really do like Devontae Adams. Obviously, he was a top 3 wide receiver in the league last season, and now he's going to go onto this Raiders team with Derek Carr, who just likes to throw a lot of dynamic down the field passes. He has a great long game, and I think that team is going to be really solid. My second one that I'm going to name, though, is going to be Matt Ryan of the Colts. We saw with the Rams what it takes when you just take a quarterback who's pretty far above average but not outstanding and put him on a team with all the rest of the pieces there. I mean, we thought that Carson Wentz was going to be that guy, but clearly that just didn't work out the way that they wanted it to. So now you put him on a team with a top 5 running back in the league and a solid receiving core, and you're looking at an offense that actually might be pretty solid. So those are my favorite ones. What about you guys?
I love the Matt Ryan and Derek Carr respect. I feel like those are 2 quarterbacks that have kind of flown under the radar, mostly because they've been stuck on teams that aren't very good. And usually when they do get somewhere, mistakes are going to get magnified in the playoffs, and sometimes the mistakes aren't even his fault, with Matt Ryan especially. But like I said, 2 quarterbacks that I think don't get a lot of respect. But my not favorite, because I'm going to get into the favorite, but the best acquisition I think is Khalil Mack to the Chargers. I think that trade, it happened at the start of the whole trade window, but I think that makes the Chargers defense terrifying in a division that I touched on earlier has no shortage of great
offensive talent.
Offensive talent and great defense, like the Denver Broncos. They're always going to have a great defense, but I think that really. Because, the Chargers are going to score a lot of points. Justin Herbert, great quarterback. Mike Williams got paid by the Chargers. Good for him. But I think that really makes that defense like a step above where they were last year, and that's what you got to do in the NFL. Khalil Mack, he's been kind of, declining in stats production for the Bears, but it's the Bears. It's not his fault. So he's not going to be the main focus of defenses because you have one of the Bosa spawns. I forgot the first name. Is it Nick or Joey? It's Joey on the Chargers and Nick on the 40.
Yep.
Excuse me. But my favorite acquisition, staying, in my biased self, Dante Jackson re-signing to the Carolina Panthers. Ooh. I really loved that. He's a athletic, he's a monster athletically. I was trying to think of a good thing, but I had to backtrack to say, he's just you've all seen it because we watch the Panthers. We're all Panthers fans. The way he can leap to make interceptions, that stood out his first year. His second year, what stood out was his speed. This year, it was his tackling and his speed to the ball right after a completion was made short or getting to the ball in the air that really impressed me. He's made marketed improvements to his game every single season, and I think with the Panthers hiring Steve Wilkes to be the secondary coach, I think that will help him revolutionize his game as a player. I think he's going to be great. I think the Panthers have they had a great defense last year, but I think even if they don't re-sign Stephon Gilmore, I think their cornerback room is outstanding. I think he'll be a big part of that. And if the Panthers somehow take advantage of a weakened NFC and make the playoffs, I think Dante Jackson emerging as a great lockdown corner with outstanding athleticism, speed, tackling. And he's so great athletically that now he's getting it together with the intangibles, being able to, his physicality. I mean, he's from LSU. They're physical, they're mean, but I just think he's going to be awesome this year, and I can't wait to watch him play. But we'll get, I can wait to watch the rest of the Panthers play.
See, he reminds me so much of Trevon Diggs in the sense of like, he is so fast, yet he just gets burnt so much. And it makes no sense to me how guys will just get right past him and we'll be like, Dante, you're literally one of, if not the fastest dudes in the league. How are you just getting burnt? But part of that is just the mental game. If it's just understanding coverages and wide receiver tendencies, if he can get that down better in the offseason, because the talent is there, I'm sure that, he is bound for a really good season. So
that's something Steve Wilkes can really help with, because Josh Norman, when he was really good with Carolina, he credited a lot of his success to the coaching of Wilkes. And I think, maybe Dante won't have as great a season as Josh Norman did in 2015, but I think he could get to a peak somewhat like that.
Well, also, there's definitely a mental toll of playing on the Panthers. Well, it's just like, how often was that defense on the field?
Oh,
I mean, you saw Sam Darnold throw 4 straight incompletions, and then you got to trot it back on the field and guard Calvin Ridley or Michael Thomas. Like, it's not easy matched up against all this talent and then just getting no help offensively.
And fortunately, Dante won't have to be guarding Ridley this season after Ridley placing some nice parlays on the Falcons winning, which is just a terrible idea.
At least, hey, he had faith in his team.
He did.
That's something.
I'll give him credit.
You got to commend him for that. He could have bet on them to lose.
He could have Pete Rosed. He didn't do that. I mean, it was an interesting move. But I'll get into my favorite acquisitions. One of them, which has gone under the radar, has got to be DJ Moore returning to the Panthers. DJ Moore is definitely one of the most disrespected receivers for absolutely no reason. He's always in like the top of like each category, and then you look at the quarterback that's throwing to him, and you're like, how does this man not get more love? He has Sam Darnold throwing him the ball.
He's a monster.
That's actually since 2019, DJ Moore has had the following quarterbacks: injured Cam Newton, Kyle Allen, Will Grier, PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, Cam Newton being brought in, not being able to learn the system, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some other quarterback that may have started
We've
a
gone
random
through
game.
so many. It's like the Browns.
In a couple years, we're gonna have
through
like the jersey that the Browns used to have with the descending list of names. I'm hoping that they could hire Brian Flores mostly because of how he used Jalen Waddle his rookie season with the Dolphins. I think DJ Moore in like a Jalen Waddle, Deebo Samuel type role, or being used like Curtis Samuel was on the Panthers could just be crazy good, because then it would take load off of Christian McCaffrey, and we just got really into the Panthers there. If you can't tell, I'm getting very excited about the Panthers, no matter how good or bad they are.
Another one of my, I'll give a quick favorite acquisition. Well, I'll go favorite few. It's just kind of the Bengals offensive line. I mean, that team was so fun to watch. I was rooting for them throughout the playoffs. Just wanted to see, like, it's frustrating, like, you're pulling for a team and then you see Joe Burrow get sacked 7 times in the Super Bowl, and it's like, you don't even get to, like, watch the guy play. He's just under such pressure. But I think they're going to be really fun to watch and definitely could return to the Super Bowl.
Right. So now to get into some of our March Madness progressions, let's talk favorites. So, before we do that, actually keep rolling. Just keep rolling.
Live from the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
This is Student News at 7.
All right, I'm ready.
No.
Okay, we're
I thought you had to like go to the bathroom or something.
We're here to talk some favorites today. Here to rep JJ. Shout out to him and his awesome podcast, The Old Man and the Three. But we're here. We're dialed in. Paulo's here. Mark is here. Jeremy is here. And I will start this off by saying on Friday night, or no, it was Thursday night. That was maybe that was some of the most scared that I'd been in my Duke fanhood, because that Texas Tech team was a very good team, and I was very afraid to play them. And especially when we went down 66-68, I was like, man, I don't think that we're going to be able to counterpunch this one. And then Paulo, he just goes under the legs for the one time and then picks that ball up and just drains the three. And I think that I like fell over instantly. I was standing up, just like hands on the hips. I think I just almost fainted. Like that was crazy. But now glided past Arkansas too. You know, everybody, every single round is like, oh, this is Coach K's last game. But you know, now we're still rolling, man. And I'm happy, I'm excited, and we have maybe the potential most watched college basketball game ever coming on Saturday.
I don't think it's a doubt. I mean, this is insane.
You're a North Carolina fan, you're a Duke fan, and I'm like kind of the neutral here right now, but I'm really excited. I know St. Peter's was really fun. I love St. Peter's. Shaheen Holloway, please come to Seton Hall. I know it's been rumored, but you know, make it official, please. But this Final Four, I think, is just going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be outstanding basketball. Duke, UNC, like we've mentioned, most watched game ever potentially. I mean, Coach K, his final Four.
Final game against UNC.
No matter what.
Attempts to avenge his last home game loss. UNC trying to knock him out of the tournament for good. And I feel like it's overshadowing a game that's going to be really awesome, too. Kansas-Villanova. Villanova, they're an outstanding program. They have been ever since, I think, about 2013 is the last time they missed the NCAA tournament. Jay Wright has really transformed that program into a just really great staying power in the college basketball landscape. And Bill Self at Kansas speaks for its – sorry, that pun was not intended. But this might be they've kind of flown under the radar just because of all the other big storylines this year.
Yeah.
Coach K, you know, Gonzaga,
the whole
St.
left
Peters,
side of the bracket.
The whole left side of the bracket was
so
chaos.
Much,
And Kansas, they kind of got helped out because their region was kind of a crazy upset-filled region. But they still had to get to the Final Four, and they did. And they played really well. I'm excited for Villanova, Kansas. I think that's going to be a really great game. This could be the year that Kansas final, because you know they've suffered, but they've gone through a little bit of a title drought for a blue blood. I think it was 2008 or 2009 was the last time they won. It was against D Rose and the Memphis Tigers.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, UNC Duke is going to take the cake, and it's going to be the premier billing. I don't remember the times exactly for each game.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
America's
because
stopping
I'm clearing the
everything.
schedule all Saturday.
Yeah.
But
And Spencer, before you give your thoughts,
Okay,
and before
all right.
dig into the women's side of the bracket, we do need to give a shout out to our USC women's team. They're in the Final Four. They're looking so dominant. Spencer's going to speak more on that because he was actually in attendance in Greensboro.
Yes.
And, we're so happy and proud of them and can't wait to see where they keep going. I have a great feeling about them going forward, and that's just my take so far. But yeah, sorry, take it away.
Okay, yeah, so I'll give my UNC Duke thoughts, and then we'll get into our outstanding women's team. So the UNC Duke game, as you mentioned, probably going to be the most watched college basketball game ever. It might break the NBA record. I mean, this is like, if you think about it, when's the last game you can think of that's been this exciting? I mean, Coach K, probably the college basketball GOAT. I mean, he's, just a titan of the game. His last game against the best rivalry in sports. Go ahead and write that down. Say whatever you want. UNC Duke's the Tobacco Road.
By far.
Excellent. I mean, you can say whatever you want. The rivalry's evolved in football, I think, gotten a lot better. Especially
that's a good point because people always, say best rivalry in sports, UNC Duke best. But I think, I went to a UNC Duke baseball game just because I was in the area going to a Carolina Hurricanes game, and it was a really fun environment because the hatred's still there across sports.
I mean, lacrosse, soccer. I mean, all the sports that they're both good in, or at least competitive, there's always going to be a a hatred
We'll
there.
get- We'll
Yeah,
have to-
I also think it'll be really fun watching Paulo on Monday night too in the national championship.
We'll have to get into that later, though. The best rivalry in sports, because I have thoughts on that, but I don't want to. We're gonna get that. That's gonna be a long.
That might be another.
conversation.
Yeah, that could be another time.
But getting into the women's bracket, I think this was a really fun tournament. We had the Cinderella story of South Dakota.
And Creighton.
The
Yeah.
Blue Jays out of the Big East. You know,
Absolutely
they're always
silenced. However, I mean,
that was
that was the best
it
game
happens
I've
to the best
seen.
of us.
Yeah, our women's team looked absolutely outstanding on Sunday. I mean, they beat Creighton by 30, but I mean, it definitely could have been more. But we saw Aaliyah Boston's double-double streak end. But I'm kind of glad, just that she didn't get hurt. I mean, that would be a way worse loss than a 28 double-doubles. She already has the record. So.
Like mental toll of like the records hanging on your head. It can kind of get a little, because it's nowhere near the same. I just remember earlier this season, Dane Goodwin of Notre Dame basketball, he had this crazy streak of scoring in double figures, and it was going into their game against Duke, and everyone was like, oh, Dane Goodwin, he's going to go off. He has this huge streak of scoring. He didn't make a single shot from the field. It can get in your head, and in these big moments, it can be almost too much for you to bear. And so I'm not happy it ended, obviously, but it can, the bright side of things as opposed to the, oh man, the record's broke.
Yeah, so I was, with SGTV, give a little shout out, at the Greensboro Regional. And North Carolina, their women's team actually played really well against us. Deja Kelly had I know she had over 20, played really well, but I think that was definitely a good test for what we're going to face this upcoming Friday against Louisville. And I watched them play Michigan the other day, and Haley Van Lith is just a star.
Oh,
I mean, she's really good. And I don't think their inside presence is as good as us, but our guards' defense and offensive play, every time it's the key to our wins, and it's the downfall if we do lose. Because, of course, Aaliyah Boston, if she gets the ball, she's probably going to score. She's going to get rebounds. But if our guards can't draw some of the pressure off her, there's not much we can do. So I think it's going to be hopefully a great weekend to be a Gamecock, and I really want to see a Stanford rematch.
Yeah, because no one wants UConn in the national championship.
Well, no, but...
And now we're going to talk about that because I have a bone to pick. UConn, as a 2 seed, gets to play a home game in the regional final against the 1 seed NC State. How does that work? What strings does Gino pull, that evil mastermind of women's basketball?
The puppet master of women's basketball.
I'm a Notre Dame fan, so his Muffin McGraw rivalry, it was all, the respect and yada yada. But I don't like that man. I don't like UConn women's basketball. I don't like UConn men's basketball. I don't like UConn. And I was so mad. To root for the team that just eliminated Notre Dame in a game that was awesome. I don't know if any of y'all watched Notre Dame, NC State. Notre Dame, a really young team.
Really unfortunate.
They were leading the whole game, and then turnovers. NC State got a steal, breakaway, layup to win the game with 10 seconds left. But it's just, how does that happen? How does that happen? Really unfortunate end for NC State. They had a great season. They're a great program, but UConn's back, and then Stanford. They're Stanford. They're like I think we said on Locker Room when we talked about women's basketball, they're always going to be there.
Yeah.
And so I think Stanford, UConn's going to be a great game. South Carolina, Louisville's getting a lot of the, hype because, South Carolina.
We're playing it. I mean, we're the people that bring the hype. I mean,
but, I have conflicted it because I was at Louisville last semester. So all my friends from there texted me. They're always like, oh, who are you going to root for this weekend? So
the answer's simple, and it hides under the J.J. Redick jersey.
Yeah.
So
go Cox, baby.
That's what it all's about.
To lastly touch on the recent hiring of Lamont Paris to be our next USC men's basketball coach. Personally, I like the hire. It's kind of hard to dislike the hire because it's a guy who's worked his way up into a mid-major program at Chattanooga, and he brought them to the tournament, and they almost won that game. And, he's brought in a spark of energy to that program. And so far from our program, it's looking like a little bit of optimism. He's looked to apparently hit the ground running recruiting-wise, and it would really be huge if he could actually get us back in, we haven't been ruled out of it, but, more prominently into the Gigi Jackson sweepstakes. It would be, incredible if we could keep landing some more guys, even maybe keep some of the guys who have put their names into the transfer portal. So I don't know. I mean, there's no reason to, in my opinion, dislike this hire. I think that he seems like a really good guy, and that it's going to bring some more hope to this program that in past years hasn't had that much of that. So I don't know. What do y'all think?
I agree. I really like that. I think he's a great like you said, Chattanooga, they almost won that game against Illinois, leading the whole way until the final 20 seconds. It was an absolute heartbreaker. I really loved his introductory press conference. That's one of the biggest things for a new head coach after you've been hired as of the first time you're at a big job. It's a power conference job, and you really, once you nail that introductory press conference, it really does wonders. And I thought he was hilarious. He seemed really caring for his players, and I'm really excited. Hopefully, like you said, he can kind of get some of the guys who've entered the transfer portal, because it kind of seems like our entire roster left alongside Frank Martin, most notably Jermaine Couisnard.
Yeah.
Really going to miss him, assuming he doesn't come back. He's one of the, Frank Martin, I'm going to be nice. He seems to be a guy who really develops relationships with his players well off the court.
Yeah.
That's been a big reason about a lot of these transfers, because,
every single message you see, it's thank you to Coach Martin.
There's a whole section dedicated to Frank Martin, and people, get on him for the sideline antics during games and being loud. But, the fact that he does these relationships are so important to players that him being gone is going to affect them that much. That really speaks to him as a person, as a coach, and I wish him the best of luck at UMass, where he's been hired, even though they gave him track and field clothes instead of men's basketball. But that's a completely different story. I share your same optimism. I think, Sean Miller was probably never going to do that. There were better jobs open. He ended up choosing Xavier, in case you missed out on that, gets a chance to coach.
His old stomping grounds.
Stomping grounds, gets a chance to coach in the Big East, which has really been a great conference as of late. And then some of the other mid-majors got scooped up by bigger programs. But I really like Lamont Paris. I'm excited, and I'm you said, optimism.
I totally agree. I think it's a great hire. Although there were some, definitely some talks with B.J. McKee, thinking about picking him up. He's our all-time leading scorer. But I mean, those two were the guys, so we got one of the two. I think it's a great hire. One thing we saw at Chattanooga was you saw Coach Paris use the transfer portal a ton. That's where he got a ton of his players. But you saw not a lot of people leave, which shows he's doing something right, that he can pick up transfers from the portal, keep them there, and lead the team to an NCAA tournament appearance and an unfortunate loss. But I mean, they were right there. But I think the hope is that Malachi Smith, the SoCon Player of the Year, the best player from Chattanooga, will hopefully transfer from them along with Coach Paris. And I mean, we've lost 6 transfers, so there's definitely a spot.
Got to make up some ground.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism there. They did have a sit down with Gigi Jackson just this past week. I've heard it went well, and South Carolina's not been ruled out. So I think if we lend him, that'd be huge for the entire
Duke's
program.
gonna get him.
I mean, if he doesn't choose South Carolina, hopefully he chooses the better shade of blue. But only time will tell.
This one. All right, y'all. Well, it's been another great episode. Thank you guys for all tuning in. We had a lot of fun again, and we look to see you a week from today. And yeah, from myself, from a kid from Akron, and from Spencer, we thank you and